makes aircraft fly? In order to understand what makes aircraft fly, we have to understand the theory of the lift. The first one is the Bernoulli principle, and the second one is the Newton's law. Bernoulli discovered that if we have increasing velocity above the wing, there will be the negative pressure area, and underneath the wing, there will be the positive pressure. And according to the Newton's law, when we pitch up our aircraft, we will strike and bounce down, and it generates our wings up. Let's look a little bit more detail for these two theorems. If you look how to airflow travel beneath and above the wing, there will be no resistance for the traveling this airflow, and airflow will travel smoothly. But very close to the leading edge of the wing, there will be the air molecules tend get bunched up or crowded. Because there is small area for the air molecules fit through, and air molecules will get faster above the wing than below the wing. Because these air molecules try to push, and these air molecules will hurry up and go faster. And Bernoulli discovered that if we have the increasing velocity, there will be the decreasing the velocity. You may have been seeing that when you're watching river or the creek, when the creek getting narrow and narrow, the velocity of the water will increase. And I realized that there is the increasing velocity and it generates a negative pressure area, and beneath the wing there will be the positive pressure. This negative pressure will generate the suction or lifting force, and this positive pressure area try to refill this void, and it will generate the lifting force. Basically, when we go faster and faster, this differential pressure will be increased and our lifting force will be increased. The second thing is the Newton's law. When wind will strike and bounce down, what Newton says that if we have any action, there will be the opposite and equal reaction to this force. And wind will strike, bounce down, and our wings will generate the lift. So basically, we can generate the lift when, thanks to the Bernoulli theorem, using the Bernoulli theorem, increasing our airspeed, or according to the Newton's law, when we pitch up the aircraft, increasing our back pressure with the elevator, and we can increase the lift. The aircraft can go higher and higher, either increasing our airspeed or pitching up the aircraft. We can increase our back pressure just so much. At that point, we need to look at fifth term, and we need to understand what is the angle of attack and how we could exceed the angle of attack or critical angle of attack. This is the leading edge of the wing, and here is the trailing edge of the wing. If I draw an imaginary line from leading edge to trailing edge, we call that the chord line. And there is also another term which is the camber. Camber is the actual curvature of the wing. And don't confuse with the camber and the chord line. Chord line is basically the shortest distance from leading edge to trailing edge. The next term is the relative wind. Relative wind is basically opposite the aircraft flight path. If I fly straight and level, the relative wind will be from this direction. If I increase my power setting and aircraft climb like this, the relative wind will be from this direction. Oppositely, if I reduce my power setting and then let the aircraft sinking down without changing any attitude, keeping this pitch attitude, the relative wind will be from this direction. Just clarify, the relative wind is very important to understand the opposite the aircraft flight path. If I pitch up the airplane and do a tail slide, the relative wind will be from this direction. And between relative wind and the chord line, there is one angle, we call that angle of attack. Because the wind is attacking to wind, and the angle of attack can reach up to 18 to 20 degree almost every single aircraft. And as soon as when they're reaching this angle up to 18 to 20 degree, aircraft will be stalled. Stall doesn't mean the engines shut off. Stall means our wings will not produce lifting force anymore. In normally, airflows travel slightly top of the wing like this way. But if I increase my angle of attack, the airflows will separate from our wing. And when we increase our angle of attack so high, the, the airflow we cannot attach above the wing and will start to separate or burble away. And the lifting force will be reduced and reduced until the aircraft gets stalled. When the aircraft gets stalled, hopefully you properly load the aircraft nose heavy, and nose will drop, wind will drop, and as soon as the wind drop, the critical angle of attack will decrease, the wind will reattach the oar wing, and you will fly again. We can increase the oar angle of attack just so much until the reaching critical angle of attack or the stall. When we stall the aircraft, whether training purpose or accidentally, our airspeed can vary. The aircraft is always stalled when we exceeding our critical angle of attack. And we can exceed our critical angle of attack, and we can stall the aircraft in also very high speed. Let's look at a couple of scenarios, and we can see that we still do a stall in high speed. The first scenario, the first example, when we coming down and then let the aircraft speed up, and relative wind will be from this direction. And if I pull the aircraft, normally aircraft will roll out and continue and then climb. But if I pull aggressively, aircraft will descend, and then when the rolling count takes the momentum, aircraft will still descend and then will be climb. At this rollout point, the relative wind is still from this direction, and if you look at this angle between chord line and the relative wind, which is so steep, an aircraft probably already stalled, and our wind will not produce the lifting force. The second scenario is with high speed and stall, which is the step turns. When performing step turns, when the bank the aircraft and pull aggressively again, the aircraft will slide away. And when the aircraft sliding, the relative wind will be from this direction. And if we look at this angle, which is very steep, and we probably already exceed our critical angle of attack. So we can do a stall in every airspeed, and which is high or low. It's also indifferent from the density of the air. You are low or high, you are at the warm or hot day. It's only about if we exceed our critical angle of attack, the aircraft will stall. And so the recovery from the stall, we have to decrease our critical angle of attack, and then wind will reattach our wings, and the aircraft will fly again. Lastly, I would like to mention and how we can change our angle of attack. And let's remember, we can change angle of attack with the changing our pitch attitude. But there is something we can change our angle of attack without changing our pitch attitude. If you remember the term, the angle of attack, which is from chord line and the relative winds between these two lines. And I have the flaps and the ailerons. If I lower this instrument, and my trailing edge will be extended. If my trailing edge will be extended, my chord line will be the different way. And then do a relative wind from the same direction, and then if you look at this angle, the angle of attack will increase. I can increase my angle of attack without changing pitch attitude with the changing with the lowering or the flaps or my ailerons with the one wing. And also the last thing, we can extend flaps, and thanks to flaps, we can still fly with the low airspeed